Greetings, Earthlings. Welcome back to the channel. So today, no stupid intro music as usual. We have here an E70 X5. It's in need of some love. This one has the N55 engine. So this is the xDrive 35i, 2011-2012 model. It's got about 128,000 miles on it. And so we're gonna go ahead and do a bunch of maintenance items to it. In a previous video, I did everything underneath, all the fluids from underneath, besides the oil change, because we have to go ahead and do a valve cover on this one as well. So we didn't do the engine oil change, but everything else underneath is done. Transfer case, both differentials, and the transmission service. So look for my previous video on that if you haven't seen it. I also have some other really great videos like how to clean the Vanos solenoids, which are located here and here, okay? And I built a little PWM, or pulse width module generator, off some eBay parts. Check out my video on that, and you can see how I clean those effectively. We're also gonna change the spark plugs, the coils, the air filter. We're gonna clean the mass airflow sensor. We got a few things left to do on this, but I wanna dig into the meat and potatoes of how to do this job. And you guys can check out the other videos for those items, all right? So as you can see, we've gotten it down to where we're ready to begin reassembly, okay? Some people say you don't need to remove the fan to do it. I say, why struggle? Why, take the possibility of damaging the fan or not getting one of those tensioners screwed in right? You can end up cross-threading it. There's a lot of things that could go wrong with doing this job incorrectly. One of the common things with this N55 engine, and I believe the N54s as well, is that they like to suck the belt behind that pulley. All right, and I'll try to zoom you guys in down on that if I can, so you can see. The gap is fairly small at the top, but at the bottom, the gap gets larger. Okay, so if that belt walks off of there because your oil filter housing is leaking and dripping right down onto that belt, causing the rubber to deteriorate, that could cause that belt to walk off the pulley either way. All right, and I've seen it come off forward and get shredded. I've seen it walk behind the pulley as well. This one got really close. It was missing 2 ribs from the inner edge of the belt. And from what I understand, the tensioner was replaced. The upper idler was replaced, but the lower idler was not replaced. And I'll get further into that when we show the parts, okay? So what we did first to start is obviously make sure no one's gonna be around the vehicle. If you feel more comfortable, disconnecting the battery is a good idea. But as long as the vehicle is asleep, nothing we've done here is gonna hurt anything on the vehicle. So what we did was we disconnected, we loosened 4 bolts to go there and took out this aluminum cross support. Now on there's some clips that hold these air conditioning lines as well as this hood release cable, okay? So you have to kind of work these out of that clip, all right? There's 2 of them on there, which I'll show you over here on the bench on the aluminum support that we removed. But a little trick to taking it out is lifting this side up a little bit and working it back towards the passenger side of the vehicle on a US vehicle, right? Driver's side on a UK vehicle. And then you're gonna wanna lift this end up a little bit, and you'll have to get it out from underneath this hose right here, okay? So that's the trick, is rolling it out this way and then up, and then you take it out this way, all right? So that's how you would take that one out of there and have some more space, all right? Now with the fan, no one has a really good detailed view of this, but this rubber bushing, there's a rubber bushing that slips in right here, okay? It's engineered so the fan shroud can slide right out of it and can slide right back in. I would use some sort of a lubricant to ease that process going back in. Now to remove the fan, there's a little clip you can see here. It's kind of dark in this corner, but let me try to get a little more light on it if possible. Right here, you see that little, so we push in on that in order for the fan to be released. Once the fan is released, there's a tab on the fan that you will then fold in. The older models, you couldn't fold it in. These you can. And it helps you avoid hitting this and having to wiggle the fan like the old ones, where you'd have to turn them like this to take them out. You don't have to do that on this, okay? On this side, we have two things to do. We have the same little clip over here. Let's see if you can see that. All right, kind of hard to push, takes a little effort. But besides that clip on that side, you also have to disconnect the electrical connectors. Double squeeze on this one, all right? One on this side, one on that side. And you can see it's got a yellow seal that has to enter the connector that's on the fan. So I like to use a little dielectric grease, and I'll show you how to do that over there on the fan. But I like to push in on these, then squeeze firmly, and then pull up, okay? That way you release those two locking tabs effectively. And then clean your connectors always when you're going back together, both sides, with electrical contact cleaner spray. I'll show you that here in a second. All right, but that's how we got down to this point. We just took out the snorkel. It goes here to here. We took out, we obviously took off the upper engine support. We took out the aluminum support beam that goes across here, 4 13mm headed hex screws. All right, and then we pushed these lines back and wrapped the zip tie around. Notice we didn't go around the sensor, the plastic. We went around the body on the oil filter housing for strength. And we didn't pull them back ridiculously tight, just enough to get them out of our way. And we have plenty of working room to get in here and not cross-thread anything. You get a torque wrench in there. And all you have to do is just be careful to not gouge the radiator with your tools. Don't use extra long extensions and like air-driven ratchets or any of that. It's unnecessary, and you take the chance of gouging up your radiator, all right? And, well, really, anyway, from this point, it's a good point to inspect your radiator. And this one has an all-metal radiator in it. But it's good to check out using a mirror, the bottom of these hose connections, and make sure that you don't have anything leaking, all right, while you're here. And if you did end up having to do the radiator from this point, it really doesn't look that bad. You would disconnect a few hoses. I would advise replacing them while you have it out. And then there's a torque screw down here, and you got a couple over here, okay? So you remove these torque screws, and then it looks like you can just take this upper piece off, and then the radiator should be able to just slide right out the top. Usually BMW engineering seems to transfer over nicely year to year, and it seems to get better and better. So, all right, just in case you got to do the radiator, it doesn't seem like that much more work past where we're at now. Okay, the other thing I wanted to show you while we're here on the vehicle is I've cleaned really well, at least I think so, the pad down in there. All right, maybe I got to scrub it a little bit more, but I like to have a really nice flat mating surface, really clean threads going back together. I've also cleaned that pad right there. That's where one of the pulleys goes, the higher one. And then down there, it's right there, okay, is where the lower deflection pulley goes. And so you want to make sure that that's all nice and clean. And the reason behind doing that is obviously so that your belts can be nice and aligned. Oh, excuse me. Got my hand wedged in there pretty good. All right, so see what I go through for you guys, getting all scraped up and stuff, but it's okay, it's worth it. I'm gonna get you guys everything you need to see, all right? But I use a little bit of brake clean on a Scotch-Brite pad, which I'll show you what that is shortly, and I clean up the surface real good, and then I spray it off with brake clean again. Make sure there's no oil, no grit, nothing that's gonna cause problems when you torque your pulleys down, because if you had dirt and oil and grit and you torque it down and then that stuff vibrates out, now your bolt has just lost its torque and that pulley can wobble around. You could break the bolt, you could do damage to the block or these brackets. There's a lot of things that could go wrong. So just be careful about that when you're going back together, and use your torque specs. Don't overdo it. All right, so let's talk about the tools that we need and the parts. I'll show you these parts that we removed so you can have a better idea of what I was just talking about over there. These are the clips that contain those AC lines. You can see they're pretty thick. If the engine is slightly warm when you're taking this stuff apart, it's better. Plastic's a little more forgiving when it's warm. This is where your hood release cable goes. And all this stuff is important, guys. Make sure you put stuff back where it goes as you put the car back together. All right? If not, the car slowly just becomes more and more a piece of junk. All right? I have seen it on so many cars. When you pop the hood, you find loose cables, loose harnesses, loose lines. Everything's chafing against each other. And people think going back together, oh, it's connected on both ends. It's not that important. But when something gets chafed through and it blows all the refrigerant out, or it shorts a big wire, I mean, that's when you end up in problems. So secure everything properly, okay? And so, like I said, when you go to take this out of the vehicle, all right, you're gonna lift this side up a little bit. You're gonna slide it that way. Then you're going to bring this side of it back, up, and out of the vehicle like that. That's the easiest way to do it. Okay, the snorkel, kind of self-explanatory. It's got a little clip right there, and a little twist and pull takes it off the other side. The engine cover, you just, you know, lift that off and pull it forward. And then there's the fan. There's that fold-in piece that I was talking about, okay? It's got a little snap to it, so as you can see in here, right, it's got a pretty good amount of force to get it to fold in, all right? And then that gets you past that upper radiator hose that's right there. Okay, and that's a really cool update. Okay, and so this is where there's little tabs on the radiator near the connector that you have to push in on to release the fan to come up. I would do this side first and just get it to where it's lightly released above that tab. Then do this side and then take the whole fan out. Be patient, it's still kind of tight. You might have to do a little dancing with it, but you'll get it out. Now going back in, I would spray this connector out with electrical contact cleaner, which I have right here. It's good stuff, okay? Highly recommend using that. And then a little bit of dielectric grease on, say, like a Q-tip or something, and just go around the inside here, so that way when that seal meets it, it slips right in there, and it takes the shape of the connector well, and it makes a really good seal, so you don't end up with corrosion and stuff going on in there. All right, and also just makes it easier going back together, and the next time you have to remove this fan, easy to come back out. Another thing I like to do, take a picture of these part numbers, you know, because if this fan would ever go out, boom, I got the picture of the part number on hand, and I could search it online. I could already predetermine where I'm gonna get that part. If you could get just the motor, I mean, you never know, right? So things to know, good things to know. All right, so moving on. Those are the parts you have to remove. Here's the bolts. These are 13mm hex head, as I said. All right, and let's go on to the tools then. So there's that 13mm that I used. You don't have to use an impact gun. You know, I like to use them. If you're good with the trigger and you can moderate the force, not just be full on or you know, snapping bolts and things like that, then go right ahead. All right. On this side, I have more of secondary items that aren't 100% necessary. I better put this one over here then, because you do need something like that. So this stuff is not 100% necessary to get the job done, but this is stuff that I ended up using along the way, and hate it when people say on their videos, you just need this, this, and this, and that's it. Then you find you need all this stuff too because you ran into a situation. Anyhow, so as you saw, I zip tied the AC lines back out of the way. So the refrigerant lines, right? So we'll need something to cut the zip tie at the end, right? So let's go down the sockets. 13mm, okay? Hex head. This is a T60 Torx. All right, I like to use this slim ratchet when the fan is in there, because it's really easy to get in there with that. And it's got a 1/4 inch on this side. It's actually pretty tough. It's a Harbor Freight, believe it or not. And so are these. All right, this one is a T50, okay? So the T60 is used for the belt tensioner, just so you guys know, okay? And the T50 is used for your deflection pulleys, okay? Once you get these caps off. Recover these caps, because the new ones, these ones here are the new ones that don't come with them, okay? These came off of these ones, all right? And they're still in good shape. Just take them off carefully. Again, if it's a little bit warm, the plastic seems to be a little bit more forgiving and it won't crack as easily on you. And so that's what the flathead screwdriver was for. One of these also works well, a little pry bar with a little angle on it, okay? Again, remember you're working near the radiator, so be careful about that. And this one is an E-Torx. This one, I believe, E12, okay? I believe this was a Harbor Freight set as well, okay? So the E12 is gonna be your tensioner bolt, okay? Which is an M10 and it's 90mm long. Torque specification, put this back in, is 38 Newton meters. Now, I'll tell you something. Some of these vehicles have aluminum bolts there. If you have an aluminum bolt there, do not reuse it. You will be sorry. That head will pop right off of there when you go to tighten it down. The aluminum bolts, there is a torque plus angle. So make sure you get that specification. A place where you could get that is called MitchellDIY.com. This is kind of what it looks like right here. Okay, you see Mitchell article, right? eautorepair.net. If you type in Mitchell, MITCHELL DIY, and register. You can make a little account on there. It's very easy to do. It's about 20 bucks. For one vehicle, you get all the specifications you could possibly need. So usually when I need specs, this is where I go. And if I can't find it online, this is what I would do. All right, so hopefully you guys can screenshot that and you'll have all your torque specs. Okay, but it's basically 60 Newton meters for the deflection pulleys. As you can see right here in this area, 65 and 75 on the N55 engine. M1055, M1055, that's the length of the bolts and the diameter, which you can check with either a digital caliper or one of these handy dandy things right here, okay, for checking hardware. You can also check thread pitch on the back, so these are pretty good to have. All right, anyhow, so you figure out your hardware length, and then you go over here and you find out 60 Newton meters for both those pulleys, and then I believe that the tensioner, belt tensioner, operating tensioner, N55 with an M10 and 90 millimeter bolt is going to be 38 Newton meters. Okay, so you can use this chart. You just have to really read it very literally. Okay, like holder for deflecting element to oil sump. Okay, depending on which bolt you're tightening, because there's two different types of bolts there on the N55 motor. It's going to be 38 Newton meters, right? So you got to read these things very, very literally and check your hardware, and then there you go, all right? If there's an angle spec, it would say it over here, okay? Again, a magnet is a good tool. That's how you're going to check, okay? Obviously, that's going to be a steel bolt. But with aluminum, the magnet would not work, okay? So continuing on with the tools, a good torque wrench, obviously, so you get your torque specifications right. This helps with retrieving those caps when they drop. This is a little bit better at removing the caps than this, but this is easier to maneuver if you're in a tight space. This for cutting zip ties, this for measuring hardware. I like to use this and check behind that crankshaft pulley all the way around. Make sure no belt shards are in there, okay? Nothing is looking funky, no oil leak or anything like that. So that's what the mirror is there for. And then the magnet, obviously, will help retrieve any hardware that fell down. You know, if you were to drop one of these, it's real easy with the magnet to get that stuff back. And then also to check this bolt. Now, moving on. All right, we got tools, we got specs. You understand how we got to this point. You understand that you have to clean everything nicely. Here are the tensioners. All right, the tensioners have a date code on them. Okay, and they also come with this pin inside. Okay. So this was the 7th month, which is July, the 23rd of July of 2020, this one was made. Okay, this one was replaced not that long ago. It's not that old, really. All right, so the 2nd month, which will be February, the 13th, 2019, this one was made. All right, you notice this pin sticking out of here. Leave that in until you're all done and your belt is installed, at which point you can relieve the tension off the pin and then pull it. This will allow the tensioner to then do its job. Don't remove this beforehand. Don't try to remove this with a vice grip or something, because it will snap on you and it could be dangerous, okay? Now, you're probably asking, why am I gonna replace something that was replaced recently? Look at the color on this. You see how there's a color difference right here at this edge? All right, you like my son's drawing right there? He's 5. He's just getting into it. Anyway, you see that little edge, that difference in color? Look at how nice this one is, okay? The thing is with this, look at this belt. 8 PK, it's supposed to have 8 grooves. It lost 2 of its ribs. I don't know if you guys could see how messed up that edge is, but it's pretty rough, okay? You can see it on the further part there, all right? So look at the difference between these two belts in thickness, all right? Now I'll show you, this is a Gates belt, and this belt was not put on that long ago. What was replaced was this, the tensioner, and 1 deflection pulley, this one. So this is a brand new pulley, but you can see that some grease came out of it already, right? That's just by design. It's packed with a lot of grease, and as it gets hot, it will obviously leak out some of that grease. This one, however, was not replaced, so that's why we're going to go ahead and replace everything. Reason being that discoloration, I don't want something that's more worn here and less worn here, causing us to lose the 2 ribs from here, okay? Now, it's obviously you got to inspect everything, right? It could have been just that the belt had a failure, some debris got into it somehow, all right? But I noticed that when the engine was running, this tensioner was bouncing. They call that judder, okay? So that tells me either the engine is running rough or we have a weak spring in this tensioner. And then seeing this discoloration and this loss of this edge, I said, you know what, let's just do a whole kit on this thing. So we got this belt from BMW, but just so you know, look at the part number, all right? It's by Continental, okay? You might be able to just find that 8PK 1478 from Continental, and you would have the same belt. All right, EPDM is the material that the belt is made of. It's a better type of rubber than what we used to have back in the day. Okay, another thing I wanted to share with you guys with the hardware is, even though this is a steel bolt, you never know who worked on it before you. You want to know that this bolt is not stretched. The new tensioners come with new bolts, but remember they do not come with the new caps. So take your caps, keep them, don't throw them away. Really, don't ever throw anything away until the job is complete. All right. That way, if you have to reference something or you're going to have to use a part for emergency use, you can still get it done. All right. Use a caliper and check the width of this bolt all the way down, okay? Reason being, when you over-tighten a bolt, you'll stretch it and you'll kind of give it a Coke bottle shape. So you're going to want to do that to make sure that this bolt is, in fact, reusable. Or I keep calling it a bolt, but this is really a screw. When you add a nut and a set of washers, when you make it a complete set, that is actually bolting something. Or putting this into the block, screwing it in or threading it in, this screw, now it becomes a bolted device or a bolted part. All right, so completing this makes it a bolt. This is really just a screw, okay? Anyway, just so you have a hardware lesson out of this too. On the specs, you saw that we had different sizes of these deflection pulleys, right? So this one is a 75 by 32. It's an M10 bolt that is 45 millimeters long. There is no 45 millimeter spec. There's only the one for, I believe it was around 50. So we're gonna go ahead and go with that, which was 60 Newton meters or 44.3 foot-pounds. 60 Newton meters, 44.3 foot-pounds. Now, you don't have to do this, but I intend to. I'm gonna go ahead and put a little bit of some blue Loctite, this stuff. Just a little dab of it on the threads. Not a lot, because believe it or not, this is actually considered a lubricant when you're assembling, because it changes the drag in the threads, okay? So you definitely don't want to add this and then over torque it, and you don't want to put this right at the very tip. You just put a small dab like right up in here, all right? Not all the way at the tip. I never put Loctite all the way to the tip, all right? Because that's how you end up with something breaking off down in the hole. So you start off up here, you just put a little dab of it, and if your threads are clean, this thing will do its job. All right, just a little tiny dab is all I do, just for extra security on the belt train. That's it. Very, very small amount. And make sure the surfaces are clean so that these can bolt up nice and flat and be in alignment with this belt train, because these serpentine belts, they don't take too kindly to any type of misalignment. That's where this type of thing could happen. So besides replacing these things, I went ahead while we were down in here and just grabbed onto each one of these pulleys and wiggled them back and forth, right? With a little strength too. Grab them, spin them, wiggle them, right? Make sure nothing has any play. Look at it the best angle you can and try to see, do they look straight? Do they all appear to line up? And check while you're mounting. Make sure everything's bolted down nice and secure, right? Nice and flat. It's hard to see from here, but you know, there's a couple points you could check. It takes a little concentration, but you can get in there and you can get it done, okay? You start looking and you see where the things bolt together. And you're like, all right, that looks nice and flat. Put a wrench on it. Make sure it's good and tight, okay? And you got to check all that stuff if you have a failure like this. And spin them all and listen to how they sound. Obviously, you can't spin the crankshaft pulley. Don't put anything on there and try to turn it, because if you turn it backwards, you can actually cause your engine to jump timing. So don't do that. Most of these engines, they turn clockwise. Keep that in mind. If you ever did have to bar one over, consult your manual for the best advice, obviously. Okay, but don't rotate that engine. Don't start your engine with that belt off. Don't drive your car with this brace off. It's not meant to be driven like that. Same thing for the skid plate underneath. You know, it's a stabilizer. It actually helps the vehicle. So does this cross brace up here. So do not drive without that stuff installed. All right, I know I'm kind of rambling. I think I pretty much covered it all. Going back together, we got our torque specs, we got our tools, and we got our parts that we removed. and the little extra stuff that I would do. So if there's any questions, just go ahead and shoot me a comment in the in the comment section there, and I'll try to answer any other questions you guys might have. Remember not to remove that pin until everything's installed. The belt is all installed and routed correctly. Also on this Mitchell software, I believe you can find the belt routing, but what I would say to do, the best thing to do would be to snap a picture of how it's routed now, and then Google it. And that's how I actually found the belt routing on it myself too. A picture came up, but I'm sure on the Mitchell you could find it. If I had thought more ahead, I would have probably got that up there for you guys. Sorry about that, but I'm sure you could find it. If you can't, shoot me a message. I will find it for you, and I will make sure I get it to you, just because I didn't get it in the video. All right. I think that is about it. So we'll go ahead and wrap this one up. Thanks for watching. Be careful. Wear a mask out there. Don't drink and drive. And don't forget to hit like and subscribe. And any questions at all, shoot them. I'll be happy to help you out.